the Michigan lighthouse that has a record no keeper wants to break. On the shore of Lake Superior, in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, there is a lighthouse. It stands on a rocky point where the water is deep and cold, and the fog rolls in without warning. For over 100 years, it has guided ships through one of the most dangerous stretches of freshwater in the world. But the lighthouse is not famous for the ships it saved. It is famous for the men who disappeared inside it. The big Bay Point Lighthouse, built in 1896, holds a record that no other lighthouse in America wants to claim. More keepers have vanished from this single station than from any other lighthouse on the Great Lakes. Men who walked into the tower for their nightly duties and were never seen again. Men whose bodies were never found. What drove them away? What took them? And why does the lighthouse still employ a keeper to this day when the light itself has been automated for decades? Let me tell you a story about isolation, about the things that happen to the human mind when it is left alone in the dark for too long, and about a place where the boundary between the living and the dead seems to grow thinner every winter. Big Bay Point is remote. Even today, the nearest town is miles away. In 1896, it was practically the edge of the known world. The first keeper, a man named Pryor, arrived with his wife and children. He was a seasoned lighthouse man. He had served at other stations. He knew the life, the loneliness, the routine. He thought he was prepared. He lasted 11 months. On a December night in 1897, Pryor climbed the spiral staircase to the lantern room to trim the wick and check the oil. His wife waited downstairs with the children. She heard his footsteps above her, crossing the iron floor. She heard the familiar sounds of his work, the clink of the oil can, the scrape of the ladder. Then the sounds stopped. She called up to him. No answer. She climbed the stairs herself, her youngest child in her arms. The lantern room was empty. The light was still burning. The wick was half trimmed. The oil can sat on the floor where he had placed it. But Pryor was gone. The door to the exterior gallery was open. Outside, a freezing wind was blowing. Snow was falling. The railing around the gallery was intact. There were no footprints in the fresh snow. No sign of a struggle. No sound of a splash. Lake Superior does not give up its dead easily, but it usually gives up something. A coat. A boot. A body washed ashore after the ice melts. Pryor left nothing. His wife and children moved out within the week. A new keeper arrived in the spring. His name was Thompson. He was a young man, unmarried, ambitious. He had heard about Pryor but dismissed the story as tragedy or madness. He was confident he would be different. Thompson served for 2 years without incident. Then, in 1901, a supply boat arrived at the station for its monthly delivery. The crew found the lighthouse door unlocked. The light was not burning. Thompson was not there. A search party combed the island. They found his logbook on the kitchen table. The last entry was dated 3 days earlier. It was normal, mundane. He recorded the weather, the condition of the light, the passing of a ship on the horizon. The final sentence, however, was not normal. It read, "I can hear him walking above me again tonight. He will not stop. I have asked him to stop. I am going upstairs now to make him stop." The handwriting was shaky. The letters were uneven. Whoever wrote those words was terrified. Thompson's body was never found. The pattern continued for decades. A keeper named Johnson disappeared in 1914. A keeper named Blake disappeared in 1923. A keeper named Hartwell disappeared in 1937. Every single one of them vanished from the same tower, on the same shift, under the same circumstances. By the 1940s, the lighthouse had gained a reputation that made hiring nearly impossible. The Coast Guard, which had taken over operation of the nation's lighthouses, struggled to find men willing to serve at Big Bay Point. Those who did accept the posting often transferred out within months. They complained of nightmares. of hearing footsteps on the stairs when no one else was in the tower, of seeing a figure standing on the gallery during storms, a dark silhouette against the lightning. One keeper, a man named Eklund, served for 4 years in the 1960s and left behind the most detailed account of the haunting. He wrote in a private journal that he frequently woke up to the sound of the tower door slamming shut, even on windless nights. He wrote that objects in the lighthouse would move when he was not looking. His coffee cup, his keys, the logbook itself. He wrote that one night while he was cleaning the lens in the lantern room, he felt a hand press against his back. A cold hand. A strong hand. He felt it push him toward the open gallery door. He grabbed the railing and held on. The pressure increased. He screamed. And then, as suddenly as it had come, the pressure stopped. He packed his bags that night. He did not wait for a replacement. He rowed his own boat to the mainland and never set foot on the island again. In 1985, the Coast Guard finally automated the Big Bay Point light. No more keepers were required. The light would operate on its own, controlled by timers and sensors and electricity. The lighthouse would be left alone. But a strange thing happened after the automation. The equipment began to fail. Not gradually, not in ways that made engineering sense. Lights would turn off despite receiving power. Backup generators would drain overnight as if something was pulling the energy from them. Technicians who visited to repair the faults reported feeling watched, unwelcome. One technician quit his job after hearing a voice whisper his name from the top of the tower. Eventually, the authorities made an unusual decision. They hired a keeper again. Not to maintain the light could take care of itself. No. The keeper was hired to be a presence, a human occupant, a way to calm whatever was inside the lighthouse. And to this day, Big Bay Point has a keeper. The title is different now. The job description has changed. But the reality is the same. Every night, someone is inside that tower. Someone is listening to the wind. Someone is waiting for the footsteps on the stairs. Why does a place like this collect the vanished? What is it about certain locations that seems to attract tragedy and then trap it, looping it over and over like a recording that never stops playing? Some researchers believe that lighthouses, by their very nature, are liminal spaces, places between land and water, civilization and wilderness, safety and danger. In folklore, liminal spaces are where the veil between worlds is thinnest, where the dead can reach the living, where time becomes slippery. Others believe there is a simpler explanation. Isolation drives people mad. Loneliness creates hallucinations. Despair leads to suicide. The missing keepers were just men who broke under the weight of solitude and threw themselves into the lake. But that does not explain the handprints found on the gallery railing in 1998. Handprints that were too small to belong to any of the missing men. Handprints that matched the size of a child. A child who was never recorded as living at the lighthouse. A child who, according to local legend, died on the rocks below the tower in 1902 and has been trying to get inside ever since. I do not know what the truth is. I only know that Big Bay Point Lighthouse is still operational, still staffed, still watching. And if you ever visit that stretch of Michigan shoreline and you see the light sweeping across the black water of Lake Superior and you feel a sudden chill and you hear something that might be footsteps or might just be the wind, do me one favor. Do not climb the stairs, because the keepers who went up never came back down. And maybe, just maybe, something up there is still waiting for the next one. Sleep well.